to, and I call the August 20th Planning Board meeting to order. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Mr. Secretary.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of August 13th, 2013 as amended.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve. Does anybody have any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. We move on to approval not required. The first item on the agenda with the applicant being Charles and Thomas Crane to subdivide 4.2 acres into 3 lots located at 39 Juniper Point Road, Woods Hole. We have a letter from their engineer, Michael B. McGrath, dated, that's been received today. Dear Mr. Curry, please allow us to withdraw the plan submitted as an approval not required as my client cannot attend the meeting tonight. He would like to attend the meeting to present the plan and discuss with the board his plan. And I need a motion that we do not endorse the plan on request of the applicant.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded.
Do you have to say without prejudice on this one, Brian, or not? No? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. The second one, the applicant is Bianchi Tile, Inc., to combine 2 lots into 1 lot located at 158 and 162 Sandwich Road, East Falmouth. McDougall Surveying.
Hi.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Greg McDougall from McDougall Survey. I'm here on behalf of the Bianchis, who are not in attendance tonight. What they're planning on doing, this property is on Sandwich Road, located at 158 and 162 Sandwich Road. They just recently purchased the property next door to where the business is now, and they want to combine the lots and eliminate the lot line forming Lot 1, as you see in the plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, then I need a motion to endorse the plan. Jim?
I move we endorse the plan.
Okay, do I have a
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we endorse the plan. All in favor? Ralph, you have a question?
Any comments from the staff?
One fine plan.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. The third item on the approval.
Thank you very much.
Required. Oh, thank you, sir, for coming. Oh, that was very impolite of me.
That's okay.
Great job.
Pardon?
In the planning office tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The applicant on the third is the town of Falmouth to convey 13,900 square foot parcel to the town located at 116 Bernard St. Jean Drive, East Falmouth, town of Falmouth. And does anybody need an explanation of this from Brian? I know we've seen it before, so that's why I'm asking.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you,
I need help with it too.
oops, sorry, Brian then.
I'm Brian Curry, I'm the town planner, I'm representing the town on behalf of the town manager. This is a plan of land up at the transfer station. And you may recall that back at a recent town meeting, it was discovered that the parts of the town landfill encroached upon some private property. The town meeting voted to sell a portion of that property, the town meeting agreed to purchase a portion of that property. And this plan depicts a severance of a part of that parcel. So you see the plan creates an unbuildable lot, whatever it is there, drawn by the town engineer. And that will be conveyed to the town of Falmouth for its municipal purposes. The plan doesn't depict a subdivision because it has a notation that not a buildable lot. And I can recommend to the board that you can approve it. You can endorse it, approval not required, subdivision control.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions of Brian?
No, I remember
Okay.
now.
I remember, sorry.
Yeah, okay. I thought, but then this has been a while ago. Could I have a motion to endorse, please?
I will move to endorse this plan.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any further questions? And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a decision. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I inquire about the quorum for this?
I'm sorry.
May I inquire about the quorum for this?
You may inquire, yeah, we do have 6 members here.
Laura Moynihan for the applicant. If it's not a full board, I'm just wondering if one member is not present or is recusing himself, or if he's just not present tonight, then perhaps the applicant should have the opportunity to request a continuance on the decision.
That's a
I'm not
perfectly
saying that
reasonable request.
that they're asking for that. I'm just saying, is there some indication for the record as to why the 7th member isn't attending?
Do we have any official notification from Rich?
For personal reasons, he's not here tonight.
So he's not attending, or he's,
He's not attending tonight.
okay. When is the next available meeting from the planning board?
Let's see. They would have to meet again next week to get you a decision. But they're not scheduled to meet until sometime in September.
Okay. Would the board be willing to meet next week if the applicant made that request?
I could make it.
I could do it.
I can.
You can?
I can.
Okay.
Would it be possible then to just request a 5-minute recess to discuss this with the applicant?
Of course. So we will go into a 5-minute recess so you can
Okay.
discuss that with the applicant.
Thank you very much.
you're not quite ready yet. Do my meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your courtesy. At this time, we would like to request that this be put over for a week so that a full quorum, the possibility of a full quorum is present for next week's meeting.
Okay, and you do understand that there's no guarantee?
We understand that.
Okay. Thank you.
Get another payday.
Do you need a motion, Pat?
I don't quite know, do we need a motion? We don't at this point, we're just gonna put it over till, no action on it tonight, put it over. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on at this point, and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board.
We're going to move on to committee reports. There is one on the agenda, and that is the local planning committee. Now, we brought this up with you before. We are having some difficulty because of many things that are floating out there that we need the results of to continue moving ahead with the land use portion. One of which is the housing study that we hope will be resuming sometime, possibly late this fall, with the results sometime next spring. And that's important to know what they determine are our needs for housing before we move ahead on. The other, as you know, is the FEMA maps that have just been made available. And these impinge on what we might do for land planning. Now, that is what we really want to discuss with you all tonight to get your feedback on it, because everything that you're hearing and everything that I'm reading is saying that we have two options. We can either armor the coastline, that may be all of it, some of it, to retain what we want without having, hopefully retain what we want and prevent Mother Nature's inevitable almost course. And for an example, that would be, as you all know, we've had many eruptions of the sewage pipe under the bikeway, the bike path, and they are to some degree armoring it. To what extent do we want to see armoring? The other thing could be that, as you also know, we have bridges that connect our coastline going across the openings to all of the salt ponds. Do we want those built so that hopefully they could withstand an increase in sea level? All of this is hopeful if we make the choice that we want to armor some of our facilities and our infrastructure. So we need your input on that tonight. Or do we throw up our hands and say, let Mother Nature take her course, and we just are going to have to retreat from the shoreline? And the FEMA maps give us at this point an indication to the degree to which we would have to retreat. So I'd like to, I think I fairly stated that, right?
Yes.
You guys, you two of you, okay. And that's what we're looking for input on tonight, at least to start the discussion. Bob wanted to have a copy of the Chatham bylaw, but Joyce tried to find it. It's not there available for us, which tends to indicate that it has not been voted yet. Bob has the case study that he heard about at the conference that we attended not too long ago. So we're going to follow that through. There are other communities that are dealing with this now. I think Plymouth, Kingston, what others?
Situate, Marshfield, a lot of the South Shore communities are asking to say the exact same question.
So we can keep abreast of what their viewpoints are and how they're handling it. But, excuse me, tonight, we'd like to hear your input on what you might like to see and your thoughts on this.
Should I give them a rundown on?
Please, yes, absolutely.
Just a rundown on some examples. The permitted uses, fishing, cultivation, anything that horticulture, marine, aquaculture, any of those type of activities, recreation, floats, maintenance of existing raised roadways, installation of utilities, agriculture, government dredging of navigation channels, construction and maintenance of town landings and public boat launching ramps, nourishment of town beaches, mosquito control, maintenance of existing channels and marine facilities. So those are all the permitted uses. Special permit uses, construction of certain structures including catwalks, piers, ramps, stairs, boat shelters, tennis courts. Construction of structures or buildings used in conjunction with the marina or boat yard, construction and maintenance of driveways or roadways of minimum legal length and width, construction and maintenance of private boat launches and beaches, installation of submerged pipes or cables used for swimming pools or commercial fishing operation. Prohibited uses, filling of land, draining of land, discharging of hazardous substances, treated sewage or thermal effluent, construction of residential units or use of houseboats or barges as dwellings, buildings of any structure in 5 and V1, V and V1 to 30 zones, construction of pipelines to carry crude oil or unprocessed natural gas, actions that destroy natural vegetation, alter existing tidal flow, or otherwise alter the character of the land, destruction of natural growth that prevents erosion or storm damage, draining, damming, or relocating water courses except for aquaculture, agriculture, or flood or mosquito control. So those are the prohibited uses.
Could you back up there a second, because one of them said altering the natural landscape? Like 3 items back or 4.
Okay, actions that destroy natural vegetation, alter existing tidal flow, or otherwise alter the character of the land.
Alter the character of the land. We're going to get tripped up on that.
And altering existing tidal flow, especially if we're talking about opening up the ponds again.
Yeah.
We might have to delete or waive that section,
Yeah,
but it sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
Except for that.
yeah. I mean, I think this gives us a good starting point.
So that's a zoning, that would be like an overlay, a zoning, an overlay of zoning on the coastal, or how would this apply, Bob?
It doesn't really say.
It's in the
how-
V zone, right? This
It's
is-
called the Conservancy District.
Yes.
It's probably,
It's
I'm not familiar with it, but it's quacking like a zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, it sounded very much like a zoning bylaw, sorry. So you
Right.
would it be like an overlay of what is there now, or would you rezone everything?
Probably.
It says that it encompasses all land in the town's 100-year floodplain. It's mapped in the most recent flood insurance maps. So
We have that today.
yeah.
So
we
that
have
would be like an overlay.
Yeah.
We have that today. You're going to be looking at the new maps at the next town meeting in April. So you would be amending that section of your zoning bylaw that pertains to flood zoning. You have that in your bylaw today. Right? So you would be amending it to reflect some of the things that Chatham is thinking about.
Jim?
Well, when Bob read this, he talked about the V zone, but then when he said the 100-year, that would also include the new AE. Because that's the one chance per 100, which is 100 years.
Right.
I think Brian, when I talked with him earlier today, said that he will communicate with Chatham and see how far along they are with this bylaw, whether
Yeah.
it's up for vote or whether it's still in progress or what, because we don't know from this.
They've already won in court.
Okay.
How does this address existing property owners?
That's what we want to see guidance here, and from the other communities that are dealing with it, but
That's
then
gonna
we
be a
will,
very difficult
yeah,
issue.
yeah, we're going to have to make our own
My
decision.
understanding is zoning, that when you read it, if a new zoning law is enacted, the day that, as long as the use is in place, the day before it gets on the to warrant a town meeting, it's grandfathered.
It becomes pre-existing.
Pre-existing, non-conforming.
Right.
That's the proper term.
Right.
Yeah, so you can't
Some
force
people call that grandfathering, but pre-existing,
force people
non-conforming,
to
you
tear it
can't force them out. So they'll, if we start talking about that, there'll be a race to build on anything that's left, because then it's going to be non-buildable.
With the insurance rates being what they are?
Well, the practice I see is the only people that are doing it now are cash buyers. They're not getting mortgages and they're not getting insurance. And that's,
So they're rolling the dice. big time.
they're,
Yeah.
And they can build their
well, they're not
house
really rolling the dice too much more than
15
they,
feet in the air, right?
yeah,
They can
they're
build
not,
their
really-
house
they're not
on
really
stilts.
rolling the dice too much more than they are right now, because if they're close to the water, the risk of flooding has always been bad. It's getting worse, but it's always been dangerous. And the hurricane of '38 blew away a lot of houses that have all been rebuilt,
So.
and everybody knows that.
So what I'm hearing there is, this is nice initial guidance for us, and it's a balance between letting it go and armoring.
What I like about it, and I brought this up at our meeting, I'm just going to say it for this group, I really feel it's important, as long as we can, to maintain the coastal road that we have. What makes Falmouth different from all the other towns, and I think the reason why Falmouth is nice, in my own opinion, is we have access to the shoreline for everybody in town. And you go to Osterville, and you can't. There's no bridges connecting any of the things. It's all private property. The beaches are all private. Falmouth has a huge stretch of beach and waterfront that's open by, at the end of the peninsulas and connected by bridges. And I think we need to hang on to that as long as we can. Someday we may not be able to. But one of the things that was brought up in our meeting is that the DPW right now has a way of designing. They don't really design the build to withstand. They just rebuild them, knowing they're going to get knocked down. But they have said that they do have the ability, if they were given the right guidance, to design to withstand. And I think we should take that approach for our southern coastline and even wherever it exists on our western coastline, to preserve the public access to the waterfront. And I just think, that's my own opinion, I think that makes Falmouth what Falmouth is. And if we lost it and all those beaches became privatized or no access, no public access, be a totally different town.
What happens now, what Jim was saying is, it's an emergency rebuild, which is then allowed, without going through all kinds of permitting, when these bridges are knocked down. But to do an emergency rebuild, you have to do it exactly as it was. You can't move the footings or whatever you call it, I'm not an engineer, out further to more solid land. You can't move
raise
it
it up.
back further, you can't make it taller. So you have to build exactly what was there, and they know full well that the next storm that mimics the one that came through is gonna take it out again. And just a
Same,
very,
exactly, you mean the footprint has to be the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
Everything the same.
everything.
You can go up to the second story, couldn't you, and put in some breakaway panels?
We're talking
No, we're
about
talking-
bridges.
Well, the bridge.
Roads
The
and
bridges. And just as an example of this, along Surf Drive, where there was an emergency repair right before the road race, but that was something that had just been repaired from one of the winter storms, and it immediately got washed out again. It was the flow, forgive me, I'm not thinking of the pond, Salt Pond. It was the Salt Pond flow. So they had repaired it. It washed right out again within about a week later when we had another storm come through. And then it was just there, but they had to do that repair before the road race for safety's sake. So now we've got a very large patch there. It's anybody's guess as to whether that's going to hold up any better than it did the first time. I don't know what sort of engineering would make that a better fix, that would keep it fixed. I'm not an engineer, but the engineers can design these things.
I've seen them, they basically can build double retaining walls with tiebacks, and instead of just rebuilding it, they excavate the whole thing and they put a wall and fill over it and tie that into the next wall, so it's a lot more expensive to do, and private people do it all the time, but the town can't do it because the conservation wouldn't let them. They would just have to keep putting it back, putting it back, putting it back, and not making it last.
Which is why they do it as it is done now.
Hey,
Right.
Bob, there was things that were prohibited? Was it like, didn't it say something about new homes and trailers and that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
construction of residential units or use of
Right.
houseboats or barges.
Right, okay. So you're familiar with Hatteras, and
Yeah.
for those of you who visited Cape Hatteras, in that area, you know that they're extremely vulnerable there, and they put up with storms all the time, and they do build their houses up on stilts. And my thought was that I was wondering if we would reconsider the height of the building to allow construction of homes on stilts. Because those people down there seem to be pretty resilient despite all of the horrific hurricane damage that they incur. The houses that are up on stilts seem to be surviving quite well. So I just thought maybe you would have an exception for that, but you'd have to change the height of the, what's 35 feet or whatever it is.
Well, there are two reasons actually why they survive better on Hatteras than they would here. Because Hatteras has the dunes, and they nourish the beaches down there and create the dunes, so they do have that buffer. And Hurricane Sandy showed that all the houses that had sand in front of them survived Sandy. Those where it was not renourished, those houses took a huge hit during Hurricane Sandy. And New Jersey has a regular program of renourishing the beaches. They dredge everything that is offshore and they dredge it back up onto the beaches. I can see if a bylaw like this goes through and we do allow for additional height for stilts, that you take Walker Street, the end of Walker Street, you got all those low-lying houses, and after every rain you see the hose coming out with the basements getting pumped out. I could see someone buying one of those as a tear down and putting it on stilts. So I see, because people have been doing it down there.
Well, 2 or 3 have already been done.
Yeah, they've been done down there already, so,
They're enclosed, you know, it looks like it's
yeah.
Right.
a first floor.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's a house on stilts
Yeah.
with the walls around it to just make it look nice.
Yeah, knockout walls.
So I can see that happening more and more down
Well,
there.
if your zoning allowed that.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Ralph, the zoning does allow that people within the existing footprint, they could do it right now. And they'll always be able to do that. We can't take it away. I think this is talking about new construction.
Right,
Right.
absolutely.
And we don't have too many more lots that could be built on.
Yeah, but a tear down and.
That's reconstruction.
Is new construction.
Well, no, it's reconstruction. That's within the same footprint. You can build right now.
Maybe it's within the same footprint. You know, maybe somebody buys a smaller house and wants a bigger house and puts it on
Well,
stilts.
that's quite a negotiation if you try to do that right now.
Then it would be new. Paul?
Just a thought.
I agree.
Okay, then you have to look at how high we're going to
Yeah, that's.
require
that
this,
was really-
in those velocity zones, what kind of increase in water height you're talking about.
I don't think we really need to increase the height. Let them work within the existing limits, and that'll keep the
One-story
vistas
buildings,
down
yeah.
to a normal scale.
That's my,
34 feet 11 inches is pretty high.
yeah.
It's pretty high.
I don't want to see, okay, we've got to put up with 10-foot stilts, and then you add what's possible on top of that. Now you're up to 45-foot buildings.
Right.
Which they are in Hatteras.
Yeah.
Did you read one of the prohibited uses is filling in? So you can't raise the land, according to what you read, I believe.
Right,
But you can nourish beaches, though.
yeah,
Yeah, I would
That's,
hope so.
yeah.
Yeah, we always have a problem here because conservation doesn't want you to do it, and the beach department always wants to do it.
We should probably have a meeting with them.
Oh, yeah, we do have to have that, for sure. And one of the other things, one of the reasons that the hurricane in New Orleans created such damage is that over, I don't know what space in time, but it was quite a long space in time, all of the marshes were destroyed. So some of the information that you read indicates that we should be looking at recreating marshes also.
And right now, they're receding.
But at least recreating flow zones for these floods. You think about the mall, it was built in lowlands that used to flood all the time. Well, now you've got buildings there. So you can't have a receiving area for floodwaters. So I think maybe that needs to be part of what we're looking at for land use too. And we may have to split this into 2 sections in land use as well. But what we were looking for is your thoughts. We're just starting the conversation on this. your thoughts as to how this should be handled, whether we're going to armor or retreat. Ralph?
Brian, I had a question for Brian. Brian, is there any money in the planning department budget to hire consultants on an issue such as this? No. All right.
But we are aware of the issue, and we're thinking of ways to use commission, Cape Cod Commission, go to school on what other towns are doing, following closely what they're doing in Marshfield, Situate, and Duxbury. I'll be seeing those planners. I know them all personally. I've worked with them before. So I think there's going to be a collaboration of some towns here that, so we don't reinvent the wheel.
And there's a lot of stuff you can read from that publication that, I think it was the Woods Hole Group, that we've heard a lot about at town meeting. You know, why don't we read it? Why don't we look at it? Why don't we use it? Mr. Wilbur is always advocating that we incorporate that into our plans and take it into consideration. I haven't read it, but I suspect from what I've heard from his speaking that it advocates the retreat. I would be interested to look at it and understand the reasoning of why we should just throw our hands up and retreat, but without having done so, I would say my first initial thought would be I'm not willing to just retreat. As Jim said, that's a huge stretch of very valuable land to our town, and I'd like to investigate possible ways to save it and preserve it rather than just decide to retreat.
Well, one of his contentions is that all of these, again, I don't know the proper language because I'm not one of these boaters or seagoers or anything like that, but the stone jetties or groins that are built out, when he said they should all be removed because they are preventing the natural deposition of sand that has kept our beaches alive and healthy for so long.
And
So,
Right, there's only one problem with that though, on Woods, on the south side. The natural source of all that sand was this big knoll up on Nobska Point. And it's all armored, so none of the sand comes out of it anymore. So if there's no sand to come. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think another point that those jetties create is a swirling action which actually draws the sand out into deeper
Right.
water.
it does.
So that's, I think, the primary reason for removing those.
Yeah.
And I think the original idea with jetties was each person wanted to maintain their own beach with the dividers.
right, and it's this thing in destroying it.
Right.
So if we could do something perhaps like requiring the removal of those, but also nourishment of the beaches.
And maybe continue with those fiberglass panels that they use to protect that stretch of bike path from the, where the sewer line is, if those prove to be, you know, feasible. I suspect what's gonna happen is the sheet panels are gonna remain, but the sand height is gonna drop below them. And we're gonna have some kind of
Gap underneath.
another thing to deal with, but at least the bike path will stay intact, allegedly.
Yeah, we'll find out over the years.
Right.
And we do have some town beaches with groins in them, in the middle, that if we wanted to prove that point, we could
Take them out.
take them out and see
Yeah.
if it improves. You know, we could do it on our own land.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And
we'd
you-
also have to be allowed to do beach nourishment.
Yeah.
Right, at the same time, yeah.
And you look at Trunk River now, that's all a shingle beach.
Right.
There's hardly any sand on that anymore.
Right.
And, you know, if, we've discussed this at our meetings, where if we were allowed to just pump a bunch of sand up against Nobska and let that naturally nourish the beaches. But if you want to borrow, that's the Buzzards Bay Comprehensive Plan, if you want to borrow it, Doug.
I haven't.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Yeah, the Dutch have done something on that order to replenish their beaches. They've created a large neck of sand. I don't know how many millions or billions of cubic yards that they've put out into the sea. And it is working. It is gradually eroding that artificial dune that they built into the sea and depositing it along their shoreline. That's where that engineering took place, so.
So we put up a sign on the top of Nobska and a little ramp that Cleanfield wanted.
Yeah, right. Sand only.
White sand only, yeah.
So there are these possibilities, but we wanted to get your feedback And so what I'm hearing initially tonight is, yes, armor some things. Perhaps look at taking away the groins that do not allow the replenishment of the sand. And let some other things go.
And find a way to work with the Conservation Commission to establish a program of beach nourishment that's sustainable.
Mhm.
Because it's like we're just throwing our hands up and saying, oh, I guess we can't do it.
Mhm.
And our beaches are falling way behind.
They are.
And I believe there's other areas of the countries that are being successful in nourishing the beaches.
And in doing so, they're protecting property too.
Yeah.
Tall.
Coupled with that, there ought to be a program of beach nourishment on a continual basis.
Oh, yeah.
We try to do it when it's available or when money's available, and that's clearly not working very effectively. So we need to get into a program of beach nourishment on a, maybe not an annual basis, but certainly a periodic basis that protects the shoreline.
I think it should be an annual basis. I think it should be something that people can know they can look forward to each year. That beach is going to be good for at least the start of summer, unless we have a hurricane. No reason why it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Pat,
Yes.
my understanding, and I might be out of touch a bit, but that the county has one dredging
Do.
barge. And I can't understand why 13 towns on Cape Cod can't buy a second barge and use it for all of their beaches. It just never made any sense to me. And I would think that we could advocate that the county buy another dredging barge and to facilitate beach nourishment and keeping channels open and everything else that they do.
They do that in Florida, the beach nourishment, with pumping sand from
Yeah.
up further
Right.
onto the beaches. And it's never made any sense why we can't do something like that.
I wonder how Mashpee, if they're thinking of any of this, because South Cape Beach is really their only ocean
Yeah,
beach.
right.
And a lot of that, if you are off the coast of Pompanesett and that section of Mashpee there, it's all armored, and it's all, the sand is all gone.
Yeah, it is.
South Cape Beach isn't far behind. So it does need to be a comprehensive Cape-wide endeavor, I believe.
So that's, when you're talking about comprehensive Cape-wide, you're talking about working through and with the commission.
That
To make that happen.
And I like Ralph's
Yeah.
idea
I do
about
too.
hiring or acquiring some more dredges.
Mhm.
I mean, it is, I mean, the Cape, the beaches are a big chunk of the livelihood. And to let it go south, I don't think is very wise.
We should probably take up reading that little, or big report, as I mentioned earlier, about what Mr. Wilbur had done, even though whether or not we feel we're going to agree with it, but we should probably, we're going to learn something from it anyway.
We had a presentation a number of years ago by him, and it was really quite interesting.
He has a very good 1995 editorial in the Enterprise when he was chairman of the board. And I've kept it all these years. It's still upstairs in my folder. I think it's very enlightening. So I'll try to get copies of it.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah. That kind of summarizes the Woods Hole. He wrote it while he was chairman.
Okay. So is there anything else people would like to add tonight, or would you rather think about this a little bit further, and we'll discuss it on our committee, and we'll bring our thoughts back to you for more batting around here, because this, we thought we had gotten the more complex things out of the way with the comprehensive plan, and then we came up with this and went, uh-oh.
The real problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our own opinions, but we gotta be part of your board. The whole board has to make this recommendation, not just us.
Well, and something of this magnitude.
Then it's gotta go to town meeting.
First of all, we've got to have the Board of Selectmen on board with us. Secondly, we have to have the Concom on board with us, because we're talking, yeah, big time is right. We're talking about their jurisdiction, the wetlands areas. I mean, that's only a part of land use that we're talking about. But in this community, it is a significant portion of the comprehensive plan.
Does private land go to high tide? Is that what is that right?
No,
Private land goes down to high tide?
private land,
Goes to low
people
tide.
can access it to low tide. They have between high and low tide that they can tromp across the land.
The public can.
The public can.
That's what I said.
Mean
So,
high,
so,
mean low.
so once you go beyond high tide, you're on private property.
Yes,
Even below it, the state has what technically an easement for crossing, for hunting, fishing, and birding to walk across it. They don't take the land away. The private land is still private land, but the state has declared an easement for hunting, I think, birding and fishing. And it goes back a long, long time.
Okay.
And that's what it is. So that's why when people build those docks on their own land, that they have to go up in the air and back down again to allow people to walk underneath
Uh-huh.
for basically clamming and whatnot.
Okay.
But they still own the land.
How far out?
It's the
The
colonial
deeds can go
ordinance of,
wherever the deed says.
Really?
If there's private land, the reason why I'm speaking to this is my family owns this land on Green Pond. It's totally underwater. It wasn't, but we dredged it out. And we still get taxed on the big piece of land, even though it's all water.
Good luck selling that.
Has a dock on it. It's very valuable.
Very
It's worth $1 million.
Yeah. yeah.
Brian, what were you going to say?
What Jim's referring to is the colonial ordinance of 1690. And these are Commonwealth trust lands for fishing, fowling, navigation. So as long as you have your canoe and your blunderbuss, you can walk up and down the tide line.
Fishing rod and a camera
Fair enough.
also works. Clam rake,
Or a
stick your
gun.
hands.
Yeah. Can we move on now? Everybody happy
Yes.
with what, okay. We have future, what?
Do you want to set a time frame to come back with this, or do you want to mention this, Pat, to the Board of Selectmen for, you're going to have a joint meeting eventually here, it's a very timely topic. This is something you want to approach them with as you develop this.
I think my brother is, let's see how we do with a committee of three. We can always bring it back here.
Okay.
But I would hope that it would be on our next joint meeting with the selectmen,
Yeah,
so that we can get their feedback on what we've been talking about.
Do you think we'll have, do we want to be able to present policy, goals?
Not at that point.
No.
I think I'd like to, well, I shouldn't be speaking alone here. I should be saying that my feeling is that I would like to hear their responses to our thoughts.
Okay.
And I think that Brian could put this in a memo, that this is the direction that we've been thinking about, and we'd like them to think about it so that we can jointly discuss it. And I think the next joint meeting is sometime in September, if I'm
Correct.
correct. So that's not very far off to get their input. And then we can continue here discussing that. We may even, if we're fortunate, be able to get Concom involved in that.
Earlier, to involve these groups in the discussion, the better. Right. Even though you may have formulated a policy at the time, you're heading in a certain direction, it's good to get everyone who's in franchise and decision-making process up on the radar quickly.
Yeah. So that's what I think we'd be looking for, rather than having policies in place, because that we're looking way out in the distance, because we're looking to have a lot of feedback come in from other sources.
And you don't want to have a policy all set up and then go in and they shoot it down.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, future agenda items. As you can see, Brian is chipping away at the items that we gave him. I asked him whether he had that whole list, and he popped it right up on a screen and said, check, check. So we will be going through these as time permits, the items that we gave him to,
Right.
yes, Ralph?
Yeah. Tentatively, we had not planned on meeting next week. Is that correct? So I would ask that the board consider having only one agenda item for next week, and that being the Mammoth acquisition. I would request that.
I would be very much in favor of that. What say the rest of the board here?
Unless something important comes up.
Can we ensure if 7 members will be showing up?
We cannot.
Can we
Personally, I'm planning to break a leg or something, you know? You never know what's going to happen, in other words.
Can we we get a preliminary indication that 7 are available?
Only 6.
I'll- I'll-
Huh?
6,
Right.
we've already said 6 are.
We already
6 of
said
us are,
6.
for sure.
So it's up to Richard.
Because we can't keep postponing it because of...
No, we cannot.
Yeah,
That's why it's next week, I think, do or die.
yeah.
We're,
And I'd be in favor of that as the only agenda item.
yes, I would too.
The
About
drop dead date on this thing is what,
it's October something.
October 28th, is that right, Brian? And so
Yep. 90 days from the close of the hearing.
Good, so, you know, October 28th is a long ways off.
Yes. But Rich has missed 2 meetings. If he doesn't come to the next one, I would say, hey, we've got to move ahead.
Well, yeah. That's
Okay.
not to say that the applicant wouldn't ask for an additional extension. We
They
could turn
could.
it down, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Right,
we
they
might.
could.
It could be, you know, and for us, and for everybody to show up, and then we'll just have to roll the dice. If they ask for another continuation, and we don't have a full slate of people, then
I am going to make an
Let's-
assumption that
We'll cross that
Brian,
bridge when we get to it.
that Brian will do some digging here to find out what's,
unfortunately.
We'll have a very clear indication
yeah,
by tomorrow.
yeah, okay?
Glad I didn't get a flat tire tonight.
Well, I know. I mean, that's what I'm saying, Paul. You never know. You could have had a flat tire and you wouldn't have been here. Yeah,
I
So
thought I
I
had
can't.
plenty of time. I was at a meeting in Boston. It took me 2.5 hours to come out of
Yeah, sometime a
It's
day.
terrible.
It's outrageous.
We should have a number to call if we're running late and intend to show up.
Okay.
What would we do?
Just call the office, leave a voicemail.
Nobody there.
It'll ring, it'll leave a little green light. I'll see it. I'll call my number, the 7441 number. I'll see the little red light. I'll check it.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. But I was afraid of getting a speeding ticket more than a flat tire, actually.
Okay, so we move on to correspondence. The whole stack of stuff I have in there was actually in regard to the subdivision on Penzance. But there is one letter, it's actually an email from Steve Ford. And I think you can get the gist, what?
Subdivision on Juniper Point, not Penzance.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oops.
okay, we okay? I'm in the
We're
right,
okay.
I'm in the right place?
We're okay, you're in the right
Okay,
place,
okay,
I was
good.
in the wrong place. This is in regard, it's a request for an agenda item regarding the Cape Cod Commission reform or withdrawal. First, I hope this message finds you healthy and well. Secondly, there really and truly needs to be an updated public discussion, both within this town as well as across the Cape, about the benefits and the pitfalls of continuing to retain the Cape Cod Commission. At a bare minimum, it is the fair and reasonable thing to do. It would be greatly appreciated if you would please kindly consider such a wise concept and bring it to concrete fruition by placing it as item on your meeting agenda in the near future. And he goes into a lot of detail here. I can read the letter in its entirety if you wish me to do so.
That's from the Cape Cod Commission Reform?
No, it's from Steve Ford, and he doesn't say Cape Cod
Just-
Commission Reform Group. Nope, he just writes it as an individual.
But he's a commissioner, right? Isn't he a commissioner?
No, this is an unsolicited,
Right.
unsolicited email, unsigned. It's to Pat. It's in her correspondence. I would just suggest to the board you accept it for what it's worth. But the council's guidance to board members, to the boards, when you get unsigned emails, just, it's correspondence, but it doesn't carry the weight of someone who has actually written you a letter and signed it, offered you a return address until he tells you who he or she is representing.
Right. So he goes into a lot of detail as to
Let's
why
ask
he
him
wants
who
to
he
see
is.
this happen.
Well, have you guys all been getting these emails?
No,
I've been getting an email chain from Cape Cod Commission Reform is the heading, with a lot of opinion about how the Cape Cod Commission should adopt reforms that were mandated previously, and so also unsigned.
okay. I would suggest that if we were to take any action as a community that the impetus for that should come from the Board of Selectmen, not from the planning board. Okay?
I have a question about those kinds of communications. If it's something that's ever going to come in front of this board, those are ex parte communications and shouldn't be happening, right? They should go to you guys and you,
It comes to the office, it comes to Pat.
Okay.
She brings it to the whole committee. You see that email for the first time. If you're receiving personal emails from a third party, so long as you're not discussing them amongst yourselves, you'll be fine.
okay.
Yeah.
So
This did
that's-
not come to me.
Okay,
Right.
but what Doug was saying, he's on some list.
Right.
That's it, that's fine.
Okay,
Don't.
I was just,
We don't even know if this person is a citizen of Falmouth, do we?
I have no idea.
Or the US.
Who knows? But if anybody here wants to read it and his reasoning, I would say, go to the office, it's in the file. Rather, you've gotten the gist of what he wants, he'd like to see the commission looked at as to whether it should exist or should even be changed or what.
That doesn't appear to be a role of this planning board.
That's what I just said.
Yeah,
If in fact anything like that is going to come, it should come from the Board of Selectmen.
Well, we do have a member of the Cape Cod Commission on the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we do.
Why don't we just forward this to Ms. Flynn for her information?
Good.
If you think it's warranted.
But I don't think-
It's unsigned.
I think she would be totally aware of,
Who are the addressees on there?
just me.
Planning board and members,
Mhm.
chairman and members.
But it was sent to my attention.
that name sounds familiar. I've been
It does.
to some Cape Cod Commission meetings, and I think he might be a commissioner.
I suggest you forward it to
No idea,
Ms.
but-
Flynn.
Could I have just a-
Sure, you can take a look at it.
Seems I already have one.
Probably so, but who knows? That was it as far as correspondence goes. So we're done. If I have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.